Hello, everybody. Welcome to our very first PPC session. We're holding these sessions because there are a ton of PPC tools and networks out there to help you get the most out of your ad budgets, but it's really hard to keep on top of what they all do and which ones you might want to use. Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the very best way to convert your PPC campaign traffic is to carry an ad's message and promise through to the post-click experience, which is exactly what Unbounce landing pages allow you to do. Sending traffic to your website just doesn't convert as well. Before we begin, I just wanted to mention a few things. First, the presentation is about 30 minutes long, but Q&A might run a bit longer. We invite you to stick around if you'd like to. The recording will be emailed out to anyone who's registered for PPC sessions. So if you miss anything, you can just check the recording later. You'll be able to ask questions in the Q&A widget on your screen, and we will aim to answer everyone's questions either by typing back in the same widget or during the Q&A section at the end. And also, please let us know in the Q&A widget if you're having any problems hearing either myself or Carl so we can fix the problem. Lastly, if you'd like to learn more about Taboola and speak to a rep from their company, just say so in the widget on your screen next to the slides. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Carl Bauml. Carl is a senior sales team lead at Taboola. He started in print sales for Time Inc. and then made his way to digital advertising, starting in social media ad sales and now content marketing. In his current role, Carl manages the media sales team for the Northeastern US and Canada and is working with agencies and brands directly. Carl is going to tell you about what a discovery platform is, why performance marketers are flocking to them, and what makes Taboola unique. So take it away, Carl.
Perfect. Thank you, Corey. Super excited to be here today. Of course, one of the most important things for any performance campaign is to have a fully sussed out landing page, funnel, etc. And I'm sure that many of the people on the call are currently using Taboola and hopefully many more following this webinar. So moving into what is a discovery platform. A discovery platform is a native way of reaching your audience. You don't need a bullhorn or a buy now. You don't need something that says click here, but instead you can leverage a platform that is truly native, very much a pull marketing tool rather than a push marketing tool, because when you're leveraging a discovery platform and a native discovery platform on a cost per click basis, that allows you to use the image and title combinations to self-identify with the individuals. Now you want to make sure that when someone clicks on your placement, that's the person that doesn't want to just click and perhaps bounce, but actually engage in the page. Now, the way that Taboola is doing this is through a variety of different placements. So here we have an example of our homepage placement on the left, bottom of article placement in the middle, and then mobile in-stream to the right. Now, what we'll do is we'll work in tandem with each one of the publishers that is in our network just to make sure that we're creating as native and as seamless an in-stream environment as we possibly can. We want to make sure that the users, it's not a typical display-esque nature, but instead more so native. And one of the reasons we've been able to drive 10x the click-through rate oftentimes seen with certain display platforms. Now, why is this important? It's important because people are spending an incredible amount of time consuming content around the web. Yes, of course. People are on social, on search, but they're still spending about 20% of their time consuming content. And capturing these people while they're in a content consumption mindset through the likes of a discovery platform can be incredibly powerful. Now, in order for any platform to be successful from a performance standpoint, there has to be reach and scale. So with Taboola at this point, we're reaching some 90.4% of desktop, mobile, and tablet audiences, 18 plus in the US. We reach about 1.2 billion uniques worldwide. And again, this is across a premium exclusive publisher list. So the likes of an NBC, an AOL, USA Today, and each one of the UIs, or widgets, if you will, are going to be custom to those pages to make sure that, again, it is as seamless as possible.
Hey, Carl.
So, Yep.
Sorry, we're just getting some feedback that you're going to need to speak up.
Oh, okay. Speaking up a little bit. So, what sets Taboola apart and what else is in the space? I'm sure that for a lot of the advertisers on the call today, they are incredibly familiar with search and social, both of which are incredibly powerful platforms. With search, you get incredible intent. Social, you get targeting and, of course, access to a rather large network within a walled garden. But looking at search first, there can be instances where the price is just cost prohibitive. CPCs with search can be very, very high, especially in certain categories like insurance, health, etc. And with social, you're not necessarily getting the same amount of data that you would be getting from a native discovery platform. And what I say by that is with Taboola in particular, we can report on the open web as to the behavioral categories, the interest categories, intent categories, really anything across all of the publishers within our network, which, as I mentioned previously, reaches about 90.4%. So within discovery in particular, there are, of course, a number of players, but what sets our company apart, performance, of course, but again, it goes back to the reach, scale, and exclusivity. We reach tens of millions of uniques that no other native discovery platform does. And again, this is across an exclusive list of publishers, like the ones that I mentioned before, NBC, CBS, etc. Now, in addition to that, a recent released product that we have now is our data marketplace. It allows our advertisers to report back retroactively on their campaigns and see which demographic segments, interest segments, intent segments, again, that are not just driving, let's say, high impression volume or high click volume, but actual leads, actions, or even sales. Very easily within our user interface, you can then break out these campaigns into individual campaigns and optimize budget accordingly to take advantage of the success that they're having. Now, we're also constantly developing new products, many of which are at the behest of our clients. We recently released one that's for A/B testing, to make sure that our clients can take any item, and for us, an item is an image and title combination, and make sure each one receives the same amount of impressions. We're probably releasing dozens of products a quarter, and again, that is coming directly from our advertisers who are telling us, you know what would be great if you could do this in the user interface, or if we could report on this. One of the nice things at working at a very nimble, fast-paced company is that we have a product team that can speak to our clients and, of course, act on that as well.
Carl, I've just got a few questions about sort of your differentiators from your competition, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of price, one of the things that people were asking about, even before the presentation started kind of via email, was there's a few things. So one is, what's a typical CPC look like for Taboola?
Sure. So a typical CPC is going to depend on a number of factors. Taboola operates a true bidded system. And what I mean by that is that you are going to be reliant on the competition of the network. So CPC can be affected by seasonality, the platforms that you're looking to target, as well as the geos. So, for example, it's more expensive to target the New York City DMA than it is the state of New York, than it is, of course, the U.S. as a whole. Now, with that said, depending on the assumed clickability, as well as the targeting overlay, be it first or third-party data, we see publishers spending around 15 to 25 cents on a cost-per-click basis. But most advertisers, from a performance standpoint, are usually, when targeting all platforms, around 65 to 85 cents. But again, if anybody on this call has any specific questions, myself and my team are available to go over in depth what a recommended CPC would be based on what we've seen previous similar advertisers have been successful with in the past.
Right. So it sounds like it's fairly reasonable at 15 to 25 cents per click, but it really depends on how granularly you're targeting.
Exactly. I mean, there are some first-party and third-party data overlays that are limited to only tens of thousands of people. And in doing so, you still have to maintain the competition of advertisers bidding across the network as a whole.
Okay. And then in terms of budgets, so sometimes networks have minimum spend requirements, either hard or soft requirements. So sometimes you can't actually run a campaign unless you have a certain budget, and other times it just sometimes doesn't make sense to run a campaign because you won't be able to run an effective test unless you dump a certain amount of money into it. Are there any either minimum requirements or any amounts that you would recommend for a test?
We have two tiers. We have a user interface that is fully transparent and essentially has complete parity with what our account managers use. In order to have a full service account manager, the sweet point there is about 10K. And that's because what we've seen in terms of testing and driving data with significance, $10,000 is going to allow us to get the full ability out of our network. Now, with that said, we have a fully robust self-serve platform. I wouldn't recommend starting any lower than 1 to 2K because, again, you want to make sure that you're driving data with significance. There are a credible amount of tools that we have at our disposal for optimization, be it not just on a site level basis, but of course on the demographic level, time of day, day of week. And unless you're putting a fair amount of budget towards it, you're not going to be able to see what segments within our network are working best. So there is no real minimum, but we do recommend testing a couple $1,000s, even if it is going to be for the self-service component, because at that level, you should be able to tell, at least after a month's time, what's working, what's not, and make significant optimizations to improve your campaign moving forward.
Okay. Lastly, one person had asked before this began what the targeting capabilities of Taboola were. So if you have, if there's just like a list of different factors that you can target on, what's that list?
Sure. So at this point, of course, we can blacklist, whitelist from a site level standpoint, but we can also target by time of day, day of week. We can target by demographic using either first or third-party data, which I had mentioned before. Within our DMP, we don't just leverage third-party data segments, but we've also created Taboola proprietary segments. So these data segments are only accessible through the Taboola network based on both behavior as well as intent. So something, of course, that you can target there. We can target by CPC, and what I mean by that is bidding up or down on specific publishers. The list is actually pretty robust as to how that we can target, and I'd be happy to send a follow-up. There are a couple dozen levers that we can pull in our back end, which you would expect from a network of our size.
Okay, thanks.
So, in what situations should a marketer consider using Taboola? Selfishly, I'm going to say in every situation, but here we see basically all stages of the funnel. So starting at the top, that's building thought leadership, building awareness, brand awareness. And I think with content marketing and content discovery, it was originally assumed that you could only build awareness. You did not have this click now or buy here, but instead oftentimes promoting an article. Now, what we found instead is that when driving people to articles or now in landing pages, whatever it is that's going to work well for a specific advertiser, but take articles in particular. You're driving someone who has chosen to click on your ad unit. They're landing on your advertorial or content page, and then they are then in turn choosing to submit their email address or make a purchase. This is the person that's going to have an exponentially higher lifetime value than anybody that perhaps just clicks on a display banner. So Taboola has proven to be an incredibly powerful lead generator. I'd say that 60 to 70% of the advertisers on our network are at least tracking some sort of post-click metric. But the core and our most successful advertisers in terms of spend, and when I say successful spend, that's $10, $20, even $30,000 a day, are generating leads. And they're generating leads on par with what they're seeing with search, social, and elsewhere. Now, moving into the bottom of the funnel, you can actually drive sales. And yes, it may be counterintuitive, but both through retargeting efforts as well as prospecting efforts, we've seen return on ad spends that range between 3x to as much as 15x. Depending on the data overlays that you want to use, the retargeting that we can do. Of course, we can do standard retargeting, but also sequential retargeting, which is a pretty powerful tool in our wheelhouse. So what we can do is retarget any individual that clicks on a Taboola link, or your Taboola link, and then target them with, let's say, the next element in the funnel. So if they're reading an article about your brand, we want to hit them with a coupon about your brand. And again, this has been incredibly powerful from a strict return on ad spend standpoint, particularly this time of year with Black Friday just around the corner. And this goes across every imaginable vertical. We're working with financial institutions, automotive companies, fashion and beauty, health, technology, e-commerce companies, as I mentioned before. And it's not just large companies that are leveraging our platform. We have a couple of examples at the end of the presentation, but disruptive brands have been core to the success of our company because we provide them with a platform and an engine, if you will, to have a unique conversation with people. Again, to share the value proposition, explain why they should stop to be doing what they've been doing perhaps for the last 20 years, and try something new. There really is any of these e-tailers and disruptive companies in addition to the large Fortune 500 companies that work with Taboola. Now, I think what everybody wants to know is what kind of companies aren't a good fit, or campaigns rather. And it isn't really about the company, it is more so about the initiative. So there are certain elements of immediacy that perhaps Taboola won't be the best route for. If I have a clogged toilet or I'm locked out and I'm an advertiser looking for that individual right then and there, chances are you need to drive something with a bit higher intent. Now, of course, we can help any plumber or locksmith differentiate themselves in a crowded market. We can help them generate leads, tell their story in a unique way. But if you're looking for somebody to fix your lock or toilet immediately, Taboola may not be the right fit. In the same vein, there are certain products that have incredibly high price point. The example that we like to give is anything you have to check with your significant other. So we may not be able to help you sell a $5 million house, but we are helping realtors drive leads, get people in store to home visits. We're not selling Maseratis, but we are getting people to do test drives. So it's not, again, the company in particular. It's a specific initiative that they're looking to accomplish. So again, certain immediacies as well as high price point items can often be difficult. So moving into a couple of success stories. First, we have here Bauml. And for those of you not familiar with Bauml, Bauml is a very interesting language learning company that reached out to us because they wanted to find a platform that had scale with significance for which they could exclusively drive leads. Now, pretty impressive to say that in just a month's time, we were driving probably about 100,000 leads per month. That's significant to any performance advertiser. But what they were looking for and what they found as a huge benefit for our platform were a handful of items. One was the efficiency with which they could bid. Obviously, with search, it can be highly competitive, especially when there are other players in the space that have been doing it for some time. The transparency was incredibly important to them as well. Within the user interface, whether you're using our self-service platform or full-service account management, we make sure that you're seeing where you're getting every click, every impression, and of course, any website can be blocked at the click of a button. The CPA tracking, code can be easily generated from our website within the user interface. So regardless of it is self-serve or with a full-service account manager, you can create a pixel or a script that can be implemented on our site, which then in turn allows you to do the dozens of optimizations that we said before. And then finally was the ripple effect that they saw. They saw increasing shares on social media. They saw the website traffic grow tenfold. And at this point, Bauml has a pretty robust content hub that they've built out, which again started for the purpose of creating leads. So moving to Plated, and again, for those of you who are not familiar with Plated, Plated is a meal delivery service. They had a unique issue where, let's say 5, 6, even 7 years ago, the thought of typing into a search bar, I want prepackaged, uncooked food, was probably going to be a pretty difficult way for them to achieve a new market. There's a prime example of a disruptive company who is looking for a platform through which they could truly share their value proposition. And what we did with Plated was we magnified third-party press. So rather than going strictly to owned and operated sites, we went to publishers that wrote positively about their brand and tracked what the individuals did after reading about it on third-party press sites. So over time, through the optimization that you're capable of doing through the Taboola network, we were able to decrease their CPA by 75%. There were months where they drove 1 billion impressions. And I think that's an important thing to note. Looking at the Taboola network slightly different than you would any others, because you're biting on a cost per click, the impressions that we serve are added value. And the sheer size of our network allows us to send an incredible amount of impressions. Now, I also want to highlight the A/B testing element. So because we're reaching across 5,000 publishers and 90+% of the US, it provides you with a platform through which you can really identify what's going to resonate well. So perhaps it's not overnight that you'll have the cost per lead or cost per acquisition that you're looking to hit, but you very quickly, by leveraging the Taboola platform, can identify the right images, the right titles that are again going to allow individuals to self-identify with your product. And again, if you're selling, let's say, hair product for curly-haired women, say as much. Say it's for curly-haired women because you're buying on a cost per click. You don't have to deceive the audience in any way. You want to make sure the person that clicks is actually the person that's going to be there to engage.
Hey, Carl, I just wanted to interrupt because I have sort of a similar campaign that I've noticed from one of our customers as well. So I don't know if the people on the webinar know Indochino, but Indochino is an online suit retailer, and they've used Unbounce to create different sorts of pages. So we Unbounce typically preaches about specific best practices for pages where you have 5 elements of a page, and it often flows in a very similar way. What they did was entirely different, where they created basically a fake blog post, and the blog post was meant to answer all the same questions as a lead gen page, and it was just 5 reasons why you should consider buying your suit online, and then it read as if it was an article. And it's actually, through A/B testing, it's ended up performing quite well at about 30% conversion rate. And I don't think they were running it on Taboola specifically, but it does seem like it would be a really good campaign that would fit with a Taboola campaign, because, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like the main difference between Taboola and something like just like a run-of-the-mill sort of display ad network is that the way you position your placements, it's generally right around content where it sort of looks like you're going to other content. Would you say that that's the main differentiator?
I would say that's definitely a key element. A key element for us is absolutely capturing people while they're in this content consumption mindset. But again, you want to pre-qualify these individuals, because it's not just strict content anymore that people are driving to. But when you are driving to content, you need to make sure that the image and title combination says as much. Because the last thing you want is a poor user experience. Anytime you provide a poor user experience, chances are your bounce rate will be exponentially higher. So for the example that you just gave, we would want to be very clear as to the type of landing page that we're driving to. Now, perhaps if Indochino was to test a more direct landing page, we'd want to be clear about that as well. But the success, as you mentioned, is about capturing people while they're consuming content and want to consume more. And it's consume more products, consume more content, video, you name it. And that's why we've seen such incredible click-through rates from a front-end standpoint.
Done.
So, what's the best way to start with Taboola? Quite simply, there are a handful of ways. Following the webinar, we'll be following up with an email. So please reach out to us. We'd be happy to hop on the phone with anybody and discuss particulars of a campaign. You can also sign up at signup.taboola.com. But before doing so, I would encourage anybody on the call to identify what they want to accomplish, who they want to target, and of course have tracking ready. Because without tracking, there is no proof in the pudding, if you will. Taboola is an incredibly powerful performance engine. We work with brands big and small on strict performance goals, be it on return on ad spend or cost per lead, cost per acquisition, working on a cost per click. But in order to do so, we need to have the tracking implemented. If you guys have questions about creative, we have a team here internally that can help with that. But again, we can hop on the phone and discuss recommendations for targeting, initial cost per clicks, you name it, and can be as hands-on or as hands-off as anybody in the audience would like. So I think now we have time for some questions.
Yeah, so we've got some from the audience already that have been funneling in through the Q&A widget, so thanks very much for those who've been asking questions there. And hopefully if your question doesn't get answered live, you've got Lindsay behind the scenes is answering questions in that widget. So please keep asking if you have them. So there have been a couple questions about B2B. So could you just speak to Taboola's capability around targeting for B2B and whether this is a type of platform that works well in that space?
Sure. So I think B2B advertising can be difficult. Fortunately for us, we are partnered with about 15 third-party data companies, one of which is Bauml, kind of the 800-pound gorilla in the space when it comes to targeting by vertical, company size, seniority, you name it. And one of the things that we found is this can be an incredible engine for B2B because you have the opportunity here to promote content. So whether it's a web service provider or a CRM, these are companies that are tapping into the likes of a Taboola because, one, we can target these hyper granular communities, but target them with content. We can, of course, test content and direct landing pages and report back as to which are performing best. But we have a lot of B2B advertisers that are leveraging either their first-party data or the third-party data that we have access to.
Great, thanks. There's also a question here. What additional customization options are available on the self-serve platform?
So when it comes to customization, that comes down to reporting. So automated reporting is available. And of course, drilling down into the different levers that we have. We have our user interface that all of our self-service counterparts use, but we also have an API which can be tapped into. So more so from a customization standpoint, it would be leveraging that API.
Okay. And then how do you play with affiliates? So do you allow direct link to, I'm just trying to read this as I go. Do you allow direct links to affiliate sites, or the visitor should first land on a non-affiliate site? So I guess the question is more around do affiliate sites show up in your networks?
As long as the site complies with our full page compliance and our content policy team, that's something else that I can send around. We have a pretty robust listing of what we can and can't accept. Then we should be able to drive to the page. And we can follow up with that in the email, or you can find that on the Taboola website.
Okay. And does Taboola help with content generation? And if so, how?
We can help with image and title creation, but even better than that, within our user interface, whether it's self-serve again or fully managed service, we have a partnership with Getty Images. So when you're setting up a campaign, let's say you are a travel agency looking to send people to Paris. If you type into our Getty image box, Paris, you'll see the Arc de Triomphe, the Eiffel Tower, maybe a Monet or two. And again, you have rights to promote those images across the Taboola network. So we make it incredibly seamless for creating images. And with our full service account management team, we can also draft iterations on titles. But we do keep it a bit separate when it comes to the creation of the content itself.
Okay, great. So one person's just asking, this is Jonathan is asking, is there a low risk or low cost implementation we can use with Taboola to try out the system? And I suppose just to expand on that further, I guess the answer that I'm curious with is, what is the method in which someone could try out Taboola with the least risk and the least upfront investment?
Sure. So that's quite simply going to signup.taboola.com, creating a self-serve account, and testing whatever budget you feel comfortable with. Very quickly, you will see the scale and reach that you have access to. But make sure, again, that you guys are tracking. Make sure that you have the right image and title combinations that are going to resonate with the audience that you're looking to target. But going to signup.taboola.com is going to be the quickest, simplest, and most efficient way of getting started if you just want to dip your toe in the water.
Okay. You mentioned, in sort of along the same vein, you mentioned a test budget. You said you'd recommend at least $1,000. Is that $1,000 a day, a week, month, year? Like what's the frequency of that?
I would recommend between 2 to 4 weeks' time. Most testing budgets are for about a month. That's going to give our algorithms some time to identify the buckets and verticals within our network that are resonating best with your audience. You want to certainly give it at least 2 weeks' time before you make any decisions as to how effective the campaign is, because overnight you won't have any significance as to what you guys are driving from a traffic standpoint.
So we've got at least one person. So Owen is asking. He is a one-man band videographer focused in a local market. So he's just, whether or not your company's big or small, I guess the question is, if you're focused in a local market, you only want to advertise to people around you, do you still need that $1,000, you think, or can you get away with less?
I think you can. And one of the things that you can do is target down to a zip code level. So for a videographer who's only looking to reach individuals in a very specific space, yes, I think less works in that instance, absolutely. And of course, you're going to want to limit the reach to the people in those specific zip codes.
Okay, great. I think this may be our last question that hasn't been answered in chat already, but Andrew is asking, we currently generate form fill leads for dead advice through Google AdWords, so lead gen through Google AdWords. Would this type of lead gen work well on the Taboola?
Could you repeat the question? Sorry, I couldn't hear.
They're doing lead gen through Google AdWords, and they're just wondering if lead gen, if they could do the same sort of campaigns on Taboola.
I think absolutely. I would encourage that person to reach out following the webinar, and I will have them put in touch with either myself or one of the members of my team. We can take it a little bit of a deeper dive into what specifically they're doing and what they're looking to accomplish, as well as the rates that they've been seeing elsewhere. And I think it's very possible that we could be competitive in this space.
Great. One more question just came in from Belinda. She just says she's curious about how granular you can get with targeting. It looks like you can only target by country and only by country. What about the state or the DMA level?
So as I mentioned before, you can target as granularly from a geo standpoint to the zip code itself. So an individual zip code. You can target by zip code, by DMA, by state, by country, you name it. That's from a geo standpoint. On a device standpoint, you can target by desktop, mobile, and tablet. Within mobile, you can target by operating system. So it's pretty robust and granular, the type of optimizations you can do. And all of that you can see once you log into the user interface. And of course, I'd be happy to walk through, or one of the members of my team would be happy to walk through any specific instances or use cases there.
Okay. Well, I think that's the last question, and I just wanted to invite anyone who is stuck around with us this long to please email me back. Hopefully you have my email in your inbox. It's corey.dilly@unbounce.com. And let me know what you thought of the session. Let me know how we can improve future sessions. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback because we want to make these as helpful as possible for you. Thanks again for joining the session, and thanks to you, Carl.
Thank you. Thank you. We very much appreciate being included.
All right. Have a good day, everybody.